Chapter 1, Boxes and Pyramids. Alright, so let the fun begin. So just like last week, we've learned to do some two-dimensional shapes, starting with a square, a triangle, and of course, circles. Now from these two-dimensional shapes, we can think of them kind of like the alphabets, and now we're going to combine them to make sort of words. So from these 2D shapes, we're going to then be able to convert some very simple 3D forms. So with a square, we can get a cube. Now from here, even though there are certain angles, I'm trying to keep those sides parallel. From a triangle, we have a pyramid. So just like the cube, the bottom of the pyramid is a square or a rectangle, depending on how long you want to make it. But from there, you can get the center and make a line that is perpendicular. And then you can connect it from the edges. So it's kind of like a tent um, from the stick on the top, and then you're drawing it out to the sides. Now with the circle, with all these rounded forms, we're going to get quite a few. So the first one being a cylinder. This is a very common geometrical form. And then from there, just like a pyramid, but with a rounded bottom, we're going to get a cone. So notice I also put the line in the center just to help me extract how tall that cone will be. And then lastly, we get a sphere. It's really hard to show the roundness with just line work, but putting an ellipse in there helps. And from there, we basically get the 5 forms out of these 3 simple shapes. Next, I just want to show you all these geometrical forms physically. So I got these off of Amazon. Here's a cube, and these are fairly inexpensive. They're just made out of foam. So if you extend the cube, you of course get more of a rectangular box like this. You can see that the lines and the faces are pretty much the same. And then from there, they share the square bottom, which is this pyramid with a triangular sides on the surfaces. So square bottom, triangle side. Next, we'll have the rounded forms, which will be, the most common one is, of course, a sphere or a ball shape. Next to that common form is a cylinder, which we see all around us, anywhere from cups, mugs, pipes, all sorts of things. So you got your ellipse there for the roundness, all the way around. So you got the ellipse down here for the cone. And those are our main 5 forms. Now, you don't have to buy these forms just to draw them, so we're going to learn how to construct them. Based on what we did in the previous week of drawing straight lines and curves, we can easily draw these out. So looking at my reference here with this geoform, cubes and boxes, we're just going to start off with a series of straight lines. Just a reminder, make sure you use the same techniques that we've been learning up to this point. So straight line exercise is where it's at. Okay, so looking at this cube here, when you start to construct it, you want to pay attention to the bottom and top lines, as these need to be parallel. We won't go too heavily in perspective, but as long as you keep these lines parallel, the box will start to read. So we're going to do the same thing, but draw something with a slightly different proportion. Basically drawing a larger rectangular box. And notice how I'm dotting things off again, just to kind of gauge how long or small something needs to be before I draw it out. And also a good idea is to draw through. Now this will be an emphasis for this week, is pretty much drawing the other side that we can't actually see. So it's kind of like drawing this box made out of glass. Now a few things to watch out for when you start practicing drawing some boxes is if you'll notice here, the lines are just kind of going all over the place and pointing in different directions, right? So you want to make sure they're not doing this, because if they're not parallel, they start to look a little bit wonky and distorted. So again, keep them as parallel as you can. And for those of you that are, have done a little bit of perspective, basically what's happening is these lines are converging to a single point. And if you notice here, these are spreading away from each other, which means they're not going to the same vanishing point. So again, we're just going to do some freehand boxes using the techniques we've learned from week 1. Try a few different sizes: small, large, long, like this one over here. And again, all 4 of these lines, even though I don't see the one in the back, I want to make sure they're all parallel. And from there, I can start to construct accordingly. So I'm always going back to what I previously drew and just trying to check each angle to make sure I can get those lines reading parallel. Okay, so as you see here with these forms, they pretty much have very similar surfaces. Now with the pyramid, it does have a square bottom but a triangular side. So that's another exercise that we'll be continuing with. So that's another thing we'll be practicing drawing as well. All right, so with the pyramid, it shares a square bottom. So it's just like building the bottom of a cube. And then from here, I'm going to draw an X. Now the reason I'm drawing this X is it'll help me find the center of that square in kind of in perspective, right? Without having to measure like with a ruler. So here in 2D, I'll just show you kind of like the principle behind that. So instead of having to measure like a cross, we can just draw an X, and that'll help us find the center without any sort of instruments. From there, you could then draw a cross just to kind of make sure that we're getting the complete center. Now, the reason that center line is important is we're going to use it to extract a perpendicular line. Okay, so you kind of have to imagine it at the very center of this pyramid. So just drawing it straight up and down, like so. We can then connect the corners of the square to the peak of that center line. So even the one in the back that we can't see. And then from there, you basically have the construction of a pyramid. All right, so from here, we can also draw pyramids from different angles. So as you see with this square, it's quite on an extreme angle here to the side, But I can still use the same methods of drawing the square first to find the center line. As I extract it to find a perpendicular line, I can then connect the corners to that peak. Now from there, you can also darken up the lines that we actually see. So it's good to construct them and draw through like it's made out of glass. But with your pencil or pen, try to beef up the line quality by going over it a few more times. That way things will start to kind of pop and it'll be easier for the viewer to kind of see them. So basically I want an entire page of boxes and an entire page of pyramids. So try to construct them in different angles, different sizes and proportions. And try to keep the line exercises in mind as well as the steps on how to construct them. And try not to skip these at first, just make sure you follow it step by step. That way when you get the hang of it, things will start to get easier. So even without a complete knowledge of in-depth perspective, as long as you keep some of these lines parallel to each other, especially with these more flat surface forms, such as these boxes and pyramids, things can start to read pretty three-dimensionally quickly. As long as you keep your lines straight and parallel. So again, you can start to also skip those steps eventually, as long as you can kind of see through the forms. I prefer you guys to just really draw through as much as you can. So do a couple of pages of warm-ups for these, and I'll be taking a look on how you're constructing them.